Was this truly the only possible outcome? These are the words that Boruto utters to Kawaki. And it is only after reading this chapter, only after reading Boruto 2 Blue Vortex chapter 13, that we truly come to understand the meaning behind these words. However, when we examine this scene a little further, not only do we come to realize that this is the greatest introduction to a series, however, it also contains a big plot twist of an alternative future. This is the alternative future theory that a lot of people have been discussing ever since we have discovered the possibility of other routes and timelines that the story could have taken. When discussing Kashin Koji's abilities and the future that he has seen, it has caused a lot of people to question the future that we have actually been shown. The future that took place between Kawaki versus Boruto, as the theory is that this is one of the many futures and many possibilities that Kashin Koji had seen, one where Boruto and Kawaki had to fight, and that was the only outcome to deciding the state of the planet. And there are a few reasons why this theory could actually end up being true. That the time skip scene we saw in episode 1 is only a future of events that could actually end up happening, not the events that are actually going to take place in the story. And this is due to the current differences that we are seeing between Boruto and Kawaki's relationship at the current moment and the time skip scene that we saw in that first episode. And the first thing that we can point out is the fact that Kawaki says in that time skip scene in the first episode that he wants to take Boruto to the same place where he took Naruto. However, this now means that Kawaki doesn't want to kill Boruto. However, in our current timeline, that's the main goal that Kawaki wants to do. Although at the current moment, it may seem as the best moment to do so, so why did Kawaki not kill Boruto? But Kawaki is still in a need for intel, which is why he ordered Konohamaru to go and arrest Boruto. However, the end goal for Kawaki still is to have Boruto killed and all the Otsukis, and then it is at that moment that he will let Naruto out of that dimension and finally be punished by the people around him. This is Kawaki's own goal. However, in that future, Kawaki's goal isn't to kill Boruto any longer. It is to seal him in the same dimension that he sent the 7th Hokage. And other things that we have to point out is the fact that their clothes are a lot different. Their clothes don't seem to be the same clothes that we are currently seeing them have, and we have a Kawaki who now seems a little equal to Boruto, which is clearly not the case at the current moment, and especially with Boruto having abilities that he had when he was a lot older in the future, but now having it young, we could see why Kawaki being equal with Boruto wouldn't make a lot of sense. These are the main differences that a lot of people like to point out for this theory to actually end up being true. However, I personally don't believe it. I personally believe that this is the future that everything is going to lead up to. Kishimoto did say that there were going to be changes to that time skip design that we did end up seeing. Kishimoto did say in an interview back in the days that there were going to be changes to the time skip design that we saw Boruto and Kawaki have in that flash forward scene in the first episode and chapter of the manga. And it is simply because that scene was a little bit rushed as they wanted to start the production of the Boruto movie in the manga. This is the reason why we may be seeing differences, or it is simply that another time skip will take place that will eventually lead to Boruto looking more like they did in that first chapter and episode of the series. This is the explanation that seems to be the most plausible. Boruto and Kawaki being more equal after that time skip would make a lot of sense, as the gap between the knowledge that Boruto has about the future and Kawaki now being more involved and awakening and mastering his karma, it would make a lot of sense if another time skip would be required before Boruto and Kawaki became more equal. But the main question that we would have to answer is why exactly Kawaki now doesn't want to kill Boruto but send him into that other dimension. However, there are a lot of hints of Kawaki changing his attitude towards Boruto for multiple reasons. Not only do we have an even greater threat now that the Shinju have started to arrive and are now multiplying, and Kawaki simply saw that without the aid of Boruto, he is powerless against the likes of Jura and maybe even Hidari, but we have a Kawaki who has slowly started to show signs of him being unhappy with the results of omnipotence. His refusal to want Himawari to call him his brother is quite evident, and every time the topic of omnipotence does come to be, we have a Kawaki who does show a little bit of remorse and unhappiness with the way things went. It was truly not what Kawaki wanted that omnipotence did end up taking place. He had no information about Ida's powers and how it is connected to Shiba or Tsuki, but it was simply the outcome that came to be. And Kawaki, as an opportunistic type person, he took that opportunity to burn Boruto's bridges to the village even more and cause him to leave. However, it wasn't the outcome that he would have liked. And there are multiple different scenarios that could happen in the future that would still lead to this future taking place. I do believe that this timescape scene is going to be a moment that we're going to see between Boruto and Kawaki. However, I won't say that this theory is debunked, but I just don't think the odds of it happening is quite high. But if you like this theory of Kashin Koji potentially seeing a different future, and that future is the one that we saw in that first episode scene and chapter, and the one that is actually going to take place is going to be a little different, then you can still subscribe to this theory. However, I don't think we still have enough solid proof to really consider this as one of the theories that could actually take place. But the topic of alternate timelines and timelines that are happening simultaneously has been something that a lot of people have been confused by, and a lot of people may think that the Borutoverse has now become a multiverse with multiple timelines happening at the same time, but that simply isn't the case. And I'll explain it by going down the various possibilities and routes that we did end up escaping. When Kashin Koji explains exactly what is his ability and the way that he sees the future, there are different translations. There's the one that came out as the fan version being 10 directions, and there is one of the official manga being prescience. Regardless of the one you end up going to, but I do believe that 10 directions is a little bit cooler. So if you hear me saying 10 directions, I'm still talking about the same thing, but that ability doesn't discuss alternate timelines. It just discusses possible routes that the story could take place. It's like being in a road. You are walking on a road, and there are multiple different paths that the story could take. And it is at these paths that we have a battle royale between fates. Your fate against the fate of somebody else if you are fighting or if you are making a decision. And based off that battle royale, based off that fight, you end up walking towards a certain path. And that path that you take is the future that actually takes place. And there are not 10 other futures taking place at the same time. When you end up making that decision and the battle royale between fates is over and you end up taking a path, those futures no longer exist. And now that route is the only future that takes place. And then you are awaiting another battle royale of fates for you to pick another road and path. This is the best way to explain exactly what Kashin Koji meant by the future possibilities. It is not like we have an actual future taking place right now where Naruto is dead. It was simply an outcome that was averted, as the path that the story could have taken is where Naruto ended up dying versus Ishiki and a chakra fruit was planted. It doesn't mean that there is a story right now with Ishiki who has eaten the divine tree of the planet and is now going to a different planet. That's not what it means. But with us having this new detail, the idea of a battle royale between fates, the writing that Kishimoto is attempting to create is similar to what we've seen in Naruto. And that is the concept of defying your fate. And everything that we are seeing right now just solidifies that that is the case, as the odds were stacked against Naruto. But Naruto, just like he always does, he defied his fate once again. And this was done through Naruto's resolve and through Naruto's conviction. This is what has always allowed Naruto to continue defying his fates. As the way that Kashin Koji describes it, it means that there were more futures where Ishiki did end up winning than futures where Naruto did. But Naruto, in our current timeline, Naruto ended up proving his resolve and picking the path that eventually led toward the defeat of Ishiki. And that is just many examples of Naruto defying his fate, and why this chapter just shows and demonstrates the writing that Kishimoto has been doing for years, not only in Naruto, but in Boruto. As the person who now has to defy fate itself is Boruto, and Boruto will do that by preventing the worst future from taking place. And the power to defy fates is not something that we have just seen with Naruto, but we also seem to see it with Boruto. And that is the fact that Boruto doesn't end up dying in this timeline. There was a high probability, according to Kashin Koji, that Boruto would end up dying in that fight versus Kawaki, and so would Sarada. So what exactly happened to be the catalyst for this not taking place? There were two events that were supposed to happen. A lot of people think that it is because of Sarada Uchiha that this didn't take place, but I don't believe so. We have a Sarada who in both futures, the one where Boruto lives and the one where Boruto dies, she still ends up coming to Boruto's aid. So it means that Sarada isn't the factor that changed the future. However, what changed the future is Momoshiki, and here is why. The thing is, Momoshiki ended up seeing the same future that Kashin Koji had seen, a future where Boruto ends up being killed by Kawaki. Both Kashin Koji and Momoshiki saw that. We saw that with Boruto in chapter 75, where he saw blood on Kawaki's face, and Kawaki ended up killing Boruto. However, it did not happen because Boruto had seen the future due to Momoshiki. Just like what Kashin Koji has told Boruto about the fact that both of them now figuring out what is going to happen in the future and meeting up has already started to change the future, it is the same with Boruto and Momoshiki. When Momoshiki allowed Boruto to see the future, he then already started to change that future from taking place. And you may say, why did he do that? The reason why Momoshiki changed that future is so that Momoshiki would have a better future take place to allow him to take control of Boruto's body. And that future is the future that took place, a future where Boruto and Kawaki's lives ended up being reversed. And that would be the perfect opportunity for Momoshiki to end up taking control of Boruto's body. But even though that future did end up taking place, through the help of Sarada, and it is at that moment that Sarada changed the future. Sarada changed the future by sending Sasuke Boruto's way to end up saving Sasuke and preventing Momoshiki from taking over and killing Boruto's friends, and thus Boruto would have lost the will to live. Yet again, this chapter, chapter 13, has proven how it is the best chapter that has come out in the Boruto series, in my personal opinion. However, there is one alternate path that the story could have taken that a lot of people have problems with, and that is the future where Kawaki ends up killing not only Boruto, but Sarada. And the worst thing ends up happening, which is that Kawaki ends up losing to Code and a divine tree is planted. A lot of people got mad at that, saying that yes, everybody who says that Kawaki isn't wrong, you have the proof right here. Kawaki's plan would eventually lead to the demise of the planet. However, these arguments that are thrown at Kawaki and are now being used to slander Kawaki's character, I simply don't agree with them. And Kawaki's character is one that has been quite consistent, a person who views the morality of his actions only by the outcome that ends up taking place. So technically you may say that Kawaki's actions were immoral because everybody ended up dying, and Kawaki would view it as that. However, with the information that Kawaki has at hand, Kawaki is not a reader in a manga knowing everything that would end up taking place. Kawaki's actions were still calculated and still were based off reason and logic, based off the information that he was given. Just because Kawaki ended up failing in that future doesn't mean that Kawaki is necessarily wrong. It just meant that Kawaki's plans were simply not going to work. And if we're using the fact that you end up losing in a certain future to prove that your actions aren't necessarily wrong or that you were simply a bad character, then Boruto ended up dying to Jiraiya. Boruto is somebody who said in chapter 80 that he would bring Kawaki back, end up defeating Code, and then have his family be just like they used to be by ending the quarrel between Kawaki and Boruto. However, in a future that Kashin Koji ends up telling Boruto, Boruto ends up dying to Jiraiya, and then we have a Kawaki who is fed to the divine tree and ends up turning into a chakra fruit. So does that mean that Boruto's convictions were wrong? Does that mean that what Boruto was trying to achieve was the wrong way? No, that's not what it means. It means that circumstances happened that were out of both of their control, both Boruto and Kawaki's control, that ended up undermining the things that they wanted to achieve. Because based off the information that Kawaki had, Kawaki, due to his experiences in life, has chosen a specific path, and that path did unfortunately lead to the divine tree being created. But the same thing could be said about Boruto. So determining who is wrong or right based off a future that has multiple complex characters involved, like the Shinju and everything that we saw take place, I don't think it's a fair way to analyze Kawaki's character or analyze Boruto's character either way. But those futures will not end up taking place, and I am almost sure that the future where Boruto ends up dying won't end up taking place either. Because maybe this was the chapter where Boruto was supposed to die. Boruto was supposed to die after having that final shot that Jiraiya was supposed to make. But because Kashin Koji saw the future, because Kashin Koji now allied with Boruto in this future, we had a Bug and Matsuri who were concerned about the person who was helping Boruto. So Jiraiya ended up making the smart decision to retreat and continue to develop more intel on who exactly Boruto is working with. In the future where Boruto ended up dying, it is quite likely that Kashin Koji and Boruto were not working together. Thus, in that same moment, Jiraiya simply ended up killing Boruto. But in the new future that we are at, Kashin Koji ended up helping Boruto after seeing the future. Thus Boruto is alive because Jiraiya wanted to get more information on who exactly is helping Boruto. Right now, everything is starting to change. The future as we know it is slowly and meticulously being changed by the new knowledge that these characters have. But why is it that this future, out of all the same futures, is the worst one? Because if you analyze all the futures that Kashin Koji has discussed, the end outcome is still the same. A divine tree is being planted. So what makes this future so much worse? This future is so much worse due to the passage of time that is allowed to take place. If we take the timeline when Naruto ended up dying, you would have an Ishiki who ends up planting a chakra fruit, and the story ends there. With the future where Kawaki kills Boruto, a little bit more time ends up passing, and now we have a Kawaki versus Code, and then the divine tree is planted. However, in this future, the most time ends up passing, and other variables like Amato and what he wants to do with Delta, we have Momoshiki and what exactly he is planning to do, and the missing Otsusukis that still have nothing to be decided on. With this planet being given more time, the more obstacles will start to appear. So we now have the Shinju, and we also have other unpredictable factors that could still end up taking place, which all happening simultaneously to the worst future that Kashin Koji seems to be describing. And it all starts with the fact that other villages may be involved. So watch this video right here to find out why the next Shinju will be Shinki.